Today we've got a little bit of a different talk for you. I'm glad to introduce Peter Marsden of Concordis International. Now normally we focused on building collaborative cultures and the importance of communication on projects. Today we're going to look at a rather different environment and the environment that Concordis operate in. But Peter, can you tell us a little bit more? How does Concordis operate and where do you operate?
Well, Concordis works with people who've been involved in armed conflict or been affected by armed conflict. So we're working mostly in Africa, particularly Sudan, South Sudan, I guess on the border there, and in West Africa, in Mauritania, in Côte d'Ivoire, and we're just developing some new work in Central African Republic.
So what does this work entail, both in planning and on the ground?
Well, we work on a number of different levels. So at one level, we are putting in place local mechanisms to deal with conflict where it arises on the ground. And we reckon that local people are generally the right people to be addressing issues as they arise. And that might be leaders of the community, it might be the chiefs, it might be civil society leaders, but training them to facilitate dialogue between people on the ground. At a high level, we're trying to address some of the root causes of conflict. We're trying to work out what is causing the conflict and how we can find mutually acceptable solutions to those issues. And then thirdly, we are advocating those solutions that are really locally driven and rooted in the local reality, and advocating those to those with power to make a difference.
So given the fact that we're talking about some quite different environments, from commercial projects through to war territories, are there still some lessons that you think we could learn from your work?
I think probably there are. I mean, the first issue that really comes to mind for me is that putting in place mechanisms before any problems arrive, or even before the project starts, is a lot better than picking up the pieces after the wheels have fallen off. And now whether that's in your environment where there's been some sort of horrendous legal dispute with hundreds of QCs in 16 different jurisdictions, or in our environment where actually a conflict that might be a tension between two people or two communities has actually escalated into something very much more nasty. If you can put in place the mechanisms before, that is infinitely better. I have to say we do both. We do a lot of picking up pieces afterwards. But one of the things that we do in terms of putting in place mechanisms before is, for example, working out an agreed framework within which conflict or future conflict might be dealt with. So if there is, forgive me for talking in this way, but if there is a murder or a rape or theft of cattle, if you can put in place that mechanism that everyone agrees that this is how those issues will be resolved, you will head off that tit-for-tat violence that can really escalate and become very, very nasty indeed. So I suppose that's the first thing. I suppose the second thing is that what people say they need, or say their interests are often a bit more complicated once you start to unpack that. So people might, in our situation, people might say, we will not engage until such and such political prisoner, as they might call them, is released. Or we are absolutely adamant that this is our land and we will not move from that situation. But actually, as you start to unpack things, as you start to speak with people, as you actually encourage people to speak with each other, you can dig a lot deeper in your analysis, and they can encourage them to dig a lot deeper in their analysis, and then really find common interests and common narratives. They might still have a level of dispute between them, but actually you can find common interests. And our experience that, I have to say, gets me sort of quite excited about this process is when you move from a position where people's interests seem absolutely at loggerheads, and then you move to a position where actually they're engaging in some sort of meaningful discussion and realising that they can find common interests and common goals that they never even realised that they had. But actually then that works for a much more durable and long-standing working relationship that really is future focused and can work to everyone's best interests.
So So that all sounds very good in principle. Does it work? And how can we make sure that that continues to work?
We do a lot of work on our monitoring and evaluation to try and ensure that it works. And there are various things that we monitor. But one of them is people's attitudes towards one another and their working relationship with one another. And we monitor how their economic interactions work, their social interactions work, and their professional interactions work. And we monitor whether those mechanisms that we've tried to put in place to resolve issues before they arise, and we monitor to see whether they are being used and whether people have trust and confidence in them. And our experience is that has been extremely effective, that the more people engage with each other and the more that they put in place those mechanisms before anything difficult happens, actually the more they're able to find a long-term and lasting solution that actually works in everyone's best interests.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. And if you would like to know more about Concordis International and the work that they do, I believe the website is on the screen in front of you. Do click, do have a look.
Thanks very much.